Well, hey there, everybody. Mike Griffith here, Sunday night. Welcome to our Dog Nation Sunday night chat. As I told you, we're trying to come at you a little bit more often in the evenings, find out how you're doing, talk more Georgia football, talk life in general, right? We mix that in with our football talk because I've told people Georgia is 365. That's why if you're going to cover college football, Georgia's a good place to be. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed getting to know the audience a little bit better, answering your questions and going through our silly debates and arguments, and it's the off season, and I guess it doesn't really matter. But the Dog Nation team, this draft that we had Friday continues to kind of be a thing. We continue to talk about that today on Sunday, and everybody's doing their stories and whatnot, but we don't usually check in on our group thread on a Sunday. But today, shots fired across the bow, people talking about who should have been the number one pick. I said, guys, this was Friday. We've had two drafts. We did one, so we kind of did like a practice draft earlier in the week. And I had the first pick. And is that how it went? I can't remember. We had two drafts, and we had two different number ones. And there's like some discussion over who the number one pick should be. And I thought Jeff Sentell made a really good argument for Richard LeCounte. I really did. In fact, I did a story on it tonight. Do you know Richard LeCounte was a part of 6 turnovers in the last six games of the year? I mean, Richard LeCounte was on fire. He is going to be a team captain. He has been around, I think Jeff said 26, 27 starts. And when Jeff picked LeCounte number one, I think we were all like, cool. We all love Richie. I mean, how do you not like Richard LeCounte? I mean, even if you're not a Georgia fan, have you seen that picture of him where the Georgia Tech fans are trying to touch him? He's just a smiling, cool guy. So I think everybody was good with it, but that doesn't mean that would have been our number one pick. So, like, I had the second pick, and I'm like, George Pickens, a no-brainer, right? So I put it out there on Twitter tonight. You guys know I probably pay too much attention to Twitter. At Mike Griffith 32, you can see me arguing with crazy people and acting pretty crazy myself. Speaking of crazy, it's like almost a full moon out there. That thing's beaming, by the way. Holy cow, it's something else. So we kind of got into this debate, and I threw it out there. Who should have been the number one pick off of this year's team? Off of this year's team, if you were starting your own team, which player would you pick first? And it dawned on me. I mean, Richard LeCounte is a great argument. I think George Pickens has an argument. Eric Stokes was the number 3 overall pick. He may be the fastest player, the stickiest cover guy. Jamie Newman went 4th. I mean, shouldn't the quarterback be the first pick? Doesn't the quarterback set the tone? And, oh, by the way, with Jamie Newman. So, as I told you, I talked with all these Wake Forest football players at the NFL Combine about Jamie Newman, and they just love the guy. Love the guy. But part of what they loved was that Jamie had been in that program and kind of worked his way up to number one. They really admired him for putting his time in, and they really liked his leadership. They heard his voice. So my question is, without spring ball now, did Jamie Newman have enough time to really become a leader? I don't know that he did. I don't know. Those off-season workouts, they're so hard, they're so rigid, and they did do some throwing. They had some sessions, but, they didn't put the pads on, right? And I think part of what helps players become leaders and teams bond together is that they all go through adversity together. And again, you've heard me do this often, but I refer to my time in the military. And it wasn't much. I didn't go to war. I'm not like a lot of these heroes that served overseas. I was very fortunate to be in during peacetime, full-time. Again, did my stationed at Fort Bragg, did the jump school at Fort Benning here in Georgia, basic training in Columbia. But what strikes me as similar is how the drill sergeants would break us down and just put us through this incredible adversity, and we would all get through it together, and we all bonded. And I see the same things happening with Georgia football, with Kirby, with these unbelievable workouts. I see these guys out in pads in 90 degrees, and I don't know how they get through it. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, even when I was young, I don't know how these guys do it, but all these Georgia Bulldogs are fit and in shape, and it's just unbelievable. And they go through this together, and they bond. And the Georgia football team is a bonded group. Now, I've made the case that I feel like there's been a leadership vacuum since Roquan Smith left. since the 2017 guys moved on, since Sony and Chubb and Roquan Smith, and I felt that there was a leadership vacuum that hasn't really been adequately filled. Listen, I look at the 2017 team. This is going to break some of your all's hearts, but in my mind, that was a national championship team that lost on a buzzer beater. Georgia 2017 was the best team I saw in college football. It wasn't even close. And now, granted, I was covering Tennessee that season, but when they went through Neyland Stadium 41-0, I said, oh my, that team's not losing. That team is not losing. I mean, they were unbelievable. And really admired and respected 2017 Georgia, what Kirby did coming in there, taking a lot of kids that weren't his, that were Mark Richt kids, giving them that edge, and just absolutely dominating. In the last two Georgia teams have been good. I thought 2018 was actually better than 2019, but 2019 finished better. And that was kind of the beauty. That was the surprise, right? Like, after leaving the LSU game, I thought this team, it's over. They're going to go back to Sugar Bowl. We've seen this act before. And something really funny happened. Like 12 or 14 guys, I guess it really wasn't funny, but something interesting happened. 12 or 14 starters weren't there for whatever reason. Some of them were getting ready for the NFL draft. Others had some issues. Others had grades, injuries, whatever. There were 12 or 14 former starters not there. And it looked like Georgia was going to be in trouble against a really good Baylor team that was playing to become the winningest Baylor team in school history. Really good Baylor team. And the new players for Georgia stepped up in the absence of these former starters and really kicked Baylor. It was 19-0 at the halftime. People say, oh, how do you say 26-14 was domination? I said, did you see the game? It might as well have been 100-14. Baylor wasn't going to win that football game. And these young players, these young, hungry, talented players really asserted themselves. And Kirby really, I felt leadership really emerged in that game. And so you had this leadership going into the offseason on defense especially. But offense, where are the leaders? Okay, where are the leaders on offense? I look around and I look on the offensive line. And I say Trey Hill, and I don't know Trey behind the scenes, but in his interviews with us, he doesn't seem like a real vocal, assertive guy. Obviously, he's a very intelligent guy to play center. Ben Cleveland, I'd like to think, but then again, Ben didn't make the grade. I mean, and it wasn't eligible. So that's not leadership. So what version of Ben Cleveland's coming back, I don't know. That's a question mark. So I can't really, circle Ben Cleveland in the leadership list right now. I just can't. I mean, he's been around. We love him. He's big. He's strong. He's tough. But is he a leader? I don't know that. Has he been a game captain yet? I don't know that off the top of my head, but I know that he wasn't eligible for the bowl game, and I wouldn't call that leadership. So who does that leave? Jamari Salyer has only had a couple of starts. I think he's the best returning offensive lineman. Is he ready to be a leader? Maybe. He might step up in this offseason. Receiving core, Kyrus Jackson, I guess, would be the leader, right? I think Kirby and Georgia sent him to some leadership deal. Can Pickens, with all that talent, be the leader? How about in the backfield? Is there a leader back there? I mean, Zamir White certainly works harder. It works as hard as anybody. I don't want to say he works harder than anybody because we're hearing James Cook has had this incredible offseason. Of course, James had a little episode driving around midnight in Athens one night too. So, where are the leaders, right, on offense? The defense, locked down. I mean, listen, you could borrow a couple of those guys. Hey, you want to bring Mark Webb over to the offensive huddle? That's a leader, okay? So Monty Rice, want to come on over there and get some who are the leaders on the offense? And that's why I thought it was so important for Jamie Newman to win the job outright and become that leader, just because they need a leader. Can Dwan Mathis be a leader? Well, once he gets cleared, but he hadn't even been tackled yet. I mean, he's been battling, brain surgery. He's this miracle story. He's in contention to win the job if he's healthy. I mean, I'm hearing these incredible, and not talking to Dwan and not talking to his dad or his family. I'm hearing about Dwan Mathis from other people, from receiver people. And I'm just like, well, where's this coming from? I mean, I knew Dwan was a good athlete, but apparently Dwan had an incredible offseason. We've heard this about Carson Beck. Like, I had questions like, oh, sure, a true freshman's going to come in. But they're telling me, like, Beck is a dude. Like, no, he's real. Like he's got respect. So now here comes Jamie Newman. I mean, there's three alpha quarterbacks there. And I don't know who, I still think Newman's the guy because he's 6'4", 230 and a graduate transfer senior, and he's been through the wars and he knows the speed of the game. So I still think he's most likely the guy. But if the competition is that close, does he have the leadership? And how does he evolve? Because we really don't know much about Jamie Newman. He's been kind of quiet. He's not a guy that likes the attention. You know, when he committed, it was like, you know, I guess I commit. You know, it wasn't like a big bang boom. You know, he'd been through recruiting before. He wasn't looking for that attention. So we really don't have a feel for Jamie's personality. But this weekend, did you see the tweet that Jamie Newman put out? Or I guess the TikTok video, right? Like, I'm not on TikTok. Like, I'm officially old because I'm not on TikTok. It's like I used to be like at the front of the line for all this stuff. Now I got to call up Connor Riley and ask him what the heck this is. Connor's kind of the guy now. He's 20. Connor's 26. He just had a birthday the other day. I hope you all wished him a happy birthday. But Connor's kind of our cool guy that he knows what's hip and what's in. But anyway, Jamie Newman did this TikTok video, and I don't know how many times it took him, but he throws a ball like 30 yards and banks it in like there's a pool, okay, and the pool's got like one of those pool baskets in it, like a basketball hoop, and Jamie's standing outside the pool and throws it 30 yards and banks the football in, and then does this dance to this music. It's almost like somebody slowed down the video so that his dance is choreographed with this music. Lift up your left leg and slide to the right. Anyway, you got to see it. I don't know who did the video, but it's like, okay, now we know Jamie Newman because we've seen him do a TikTok, right? Now we know him. He's got personality. He smiles. He puts on Twitter, if it ain't fun, I'm not doing. Okay, we get it. Jamie is a cool guy. Thank you, Frank. I am officially old. Thank you. But it was a piece of Jamie Newman. Thank you. Thank you for 10 seconds of personality, Jamie Newman. I think Jamie Newman showed more personality in that one video than I was able to get out of Jake Fromm in 2 or 3 years. Now I was thinking about this. Now that's not really fair because Jake wears his camouflage, right? And Jake talks about killing animals and hunting. And he did that duck. Did you see the turkey call thing Jake did with ESPN? That was like, there's so many other parts of Jake Fromm's personality. I don't think I would have started with the turkey call. But the thing with Jake, you just, you know, and then I saw a video of Jake this weekend too, though. I saw Jake at QB Country where he's got a quarterback trainer. And he's barking out singles and coaching these guys up. And I'm going, that's the Jake Fromm. Why didn't we get that in the interviews? You know, there's a lot more to Jake Fromm that we never got in the interviews. So anyway, my point is leadership and dialing it all the way back to where this chat started, because we go on tangents when we do these things. I think Jeff made a good case. You go with account number one because of the leadership value. I got my leadership later on my team. Like, I knew in the back of my mind I was going to get Monty Rice. I knew I was going to get him before anybody else. Monty's my leader. I like the way Monty leads. I like the tough guy. I like the guy that in my imagination, in my mind, is going to be the guy that walks in the locker room and says, you're accountable to me. Forget what Coach Smart's going to do to you Monday at practice. I'm going to deal with you. Because the great teams two of the great teams that I covered, 98 Tennessee and 2012 Michigan State, had those alpha Mike linebackers. Al Wilson at Tennessee and Max Bulla at Michigan State. I think you need an alpha Mike. And remember, Roquan Smith was an alpha linebacker. I just think there's something about that linebacker that's just such a tough guy position. I would say even tougher. I'd use different language, but it's a family program. We've got 130 people watching, like a C-130. Everybody know what a C-130 is? How about that? I like Monty Rice. I like his leadership. I like his toughness. And I think Kirby identified that early. Now, was Monty in a position to lead 2 years ago? Was he ready for that? Answer, no. I talked to, I won't say who, a coach, and I said, hey, what's the deal with this Monty Rice guy? And is he Roquan Smith? And the guy said, quote unquote, Monty Rice can't hold Roquan Smith's jock. I know that got back to Monty Rice. It probably hurt his feelings. And then it probably upset him. And then it probably hurt his feelings again. It probably upset him again. Because Monty's the kind of guy that I don't think forgets things. And I don't think it's like he looks every day to be Roquan. No, Monty is Monty. Monty's his own guy. But he's a prideful guy. He's a leader. And I look to him to really assert himself this year. And that's important right now. Monty did something that I thought was a big deal last weekend. he put out a video of himself working out. And I'm going to tell you why I think that's a big deal. Because Monty is not a fan of the camera. Monty is not an attention guy. He does not like attention. In fact, he doesn't like going to the interviews. He doesn't like doing them. But his coach wants him to, and he's starting to realize he needs to be a leader, and he needs to speak, and he needs to send a message. He's starting to understand what Kirby sent him there. But for Monty to do that, which I know that was uncomfortable for him, calling out his teammates because he wants everybody to work, right? And that's kind of one of my questions I want to throw out there tonight. Who do you think, what guys do you think are working the hardest right now away from the team? Because you're really not, the coaches can't like oversee their practices. Did you see this, by the way, this Alabama thing? So I'm probably going to get myself in trouble talking about this because people always accuse me of the black helicopter conspiracy theories, and they say, Griff, you're losing it. You're way off base here. So Mark Emmert, here I go. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. Mark Emmert is the head of the NCAA. Did you know Mark Emmert was at LSU and got Nick Saban hired there? Now, would that have any effect on how Mark Emmert in the NCAA deals with Nick Saban? Is there any potential conflict of interest? Is there any reason to believe that Nick Saban would be treated any differently than anybody else just because the guy that runs the NCAA is somebody that hired him? So, I don't know. I know this. I know that when here I go going NASCAR analogy again. So, NASCAR had a rule book, right? And every week crew chiefs would do things to make their car faster. And some of them would break the rules outright. But sometimes they would do things that like weren't in the rule book. Like I remember one year Jeff Gordon at Charlotte for the used titanium wheel hubs. Now, there was nothing in the rule book that said you couldn't use titanium wheel hubs, but so they kind of found something. Then NASCAR found it and said, okay, now we got to make a rule about titanium wheel hubs, right? And that's kind of what Saban does. Like he does things and there's really no rule for it, so it's a fine line between innovation and breaking rules, right? Who determines whether it's innovation or rule breaking, right? That's kind of up to the NCAA and who they pursue and all this kind of stuff. Like back in the day, all this stuff. Remember that garbage about secondary violation? Oh, well, if the coach didn't know it was a violation, then it's a secondary. So the coach just goes, well, I didn't know it was a violation. Oh, how convenient. You didn't know. But you had like 9 or 12 of them in 1 year. Okay, so there's just been a lot of... So the most recent thing, I think, went against the spirit of the rule. But I don't think that anybody can say it's breaking the rules. So Alabama sent out these Apple Watches, right? I got one of these little deals here. They sent out the app to their players where data can be recorded and sent back. So you're technically not overseeing their workouts, and yet you have the data from their workouts. Now Alabama said, well, it's just medical. It's just for the medical. The coaches aren't looking at this. I mean, how do you know? How do you know? Do you have a spy in the building? Is there an NCAA person on the staff? Is the office bugged? I don't think so. So to me, that kind of went against the spirit of the rules. Now, is it a good idea? Is it cool? I mean, like if all the players had Apple Watches on all of the teams in the NCAA, then you go, okay, it's a level playing field. But the problem is if one team does something that another team doesn't. Like when they asked Kirby Smart about missing spring drills, the thing he was most concerned about was some teams, like Clemson, got darn near all their spring drills in. I think South Carolina got the majority of theirs in. I want to see how Tennessee might got 2 or 3. Alabama hadn't started yet. It's more about just the level playing field. So anyway, it gets back to what players do you trust for taking care of themselves in the offseason. That's going to be really big. That's a factor now. That's going to be an X factor because we can look at Georgia on paper and we know if they would have trained under Scott Sinclair's magnifying glass and under Kirby Smart and Matt Luke and Dan Lanning and Glenn Schumann and Charlton Warren, Todd Munkin, if they, Hartley, if they would have trained under these guys, I think we'd all feel like we had a better picture of what Georgia football was going to be. But it's almost like, okay, they're on their own, and now it's going to be which team does the best managing themselves. I mean, so here it is. So Kirby and the Georgia guys have always said, we're a player-led team. Okay, we're going to find out. We're going to find out who the player-led team is. We're going to find out they really are. So I'm going to go to our webpage, and where I can see your comments and see if any of you all have some comments for me. We started out talking about who was the number one pick, who should have been the number one pick, and I think a lot of people said George Pickens off the current team. Some people like LeCount. I saw a case made for Tyson Campbell. That's a guy that I'm really high on. Really high on Tyson Campbell. I think he's gone after this year. I think he's a first round NFL pick. I think this guy is so good. I think he is so good. Yeah. So Tyson Campbell. So here's one for you. If it was all time, so let's just take Herschel Walker off the board, okay? Because everybody, if I say you could have picked any Georgia Bulldog all time ever, everybody's going to go Herschel, right? And they should. Herschel Walker is amazing. I've had a chance to interview him a few times. I got to spend a lot of time with him in New Orleans. He was honored as our first ever freshman legend. Everybody remembers what he did in the Sugar Bowl his freshman season. I mean, dude, with a bad wing, goes back in there against the number one run defense and pretty much puts the team on his shoulders, and they win a national. I mean, Herschel Walker's just, and you see him today, and you hear people say, "Oh, you don't look like you've aged a bit." And we all go, "Oh yeah, thanks," and we all go, "Yeah, I have." You look at Herschel Walker, dude. It's like, what fountain of youth are you drinking from? It is stunning to see Herschel Walker. I mean, he is the most fit 50-something he's got to be on the planet. Just a fascinating guy. So we know that Herschel Walker would have been the number one pick all time. So if it's not Herschel, who's your Georgia Bulldog that you're picking all time? I've got a guy in mind that I don't think gets enough love, and I'm gonna wait a minute to throw him out there because I want to see. Now, come on, I want to see your comments. Answer the question: who is the all-time Georgia? If not, it can't be Herschel Walker. The all-time Georgia Bulldog that you would pick, all time, number one. Who is it? If it's not Herschel, it can't be Herschel Walker. Who's it going to be? Thoughts on Devad Wilson? Dancing Devad seems pretty cool. I like him. Gate. Greg Blue says Shannon Ray Daniels. He was a big hitter. I remember Greg Blue. Garrison Hurst says Mike Gay. Champ Bailey. I've seen that answer a lot. That's a guy that played with Kirby, a Hall of Famer. Champ Bailey and Herschel Walker were the only two players in the ESPN all-time 150. It was Champ Bailey and Herschel Walker. I know that there's people that would say Charlie Trippy. I know there's people that would say Frank Sinkwich. And when you look what these guys did, it was a different era, but there was still greatness there. I'm thinking of somebody else, though, and his name hasn't come up yet. Greg Blue, Champ Bailey, Garrison Hurst. Look at this. Look at Tally. He's going with Andrew Thomas. Love Andrew Thomas. Andrew's going to be amazing. David Green said Musgrave. Thomas Davis. Yes, we're getting into some greatness now. A.J. Green. Love A.J. Green. Unbelievable. Nick Chubb, right? Then now we're getting into it. The names, they're flowing out there. There's been a lot of great. Fran Tarkenton, no doubt. I've been waiting to see that. The line, Godfrey. Oh, man. Georgia's had some just stone-cold killers. Still don't see this guy's name on the list. Hines Ward. Yes. Tough guy both ways. Was he a receiver? Scott Warner. How about that? Charlie Warner's uncle. Charlie, don't call me Scott's nephew, Warner, because Charlie wanted to earn it on his own, right? Fran Tarkenton was amazing. Love the guy. And right here from Athens, right? I didn't know that, until I came on the beat, right? Ben Smith. I didn't know that Fran Tarkenton was like a local. That's pretty cool. There's some pretty good high school football around here. Nate McBride, Matt Telly says, okay, Nate. Listen, okay, Matt. So Nate McBride came in. Nate McBride has done nothing but work his butt off. I mean, that guy is still working. I'm not counting him out, by the way. I still think Nate McBride can play in the NFL because he's just that maniac that's going to do whatever it takes to get on the field wherever he goes. That's the mentality. I mean, look, you got a guy like Nate McBride, second, third team. That tells you a lot about Georgia's roster. That dude probably start anywhere else in the league. Nobody's mentioned my guy, David Green. Love David Green. Love how cool he was. I was covering Tennessee when he said he didn't think Neyland Stadium was going to be that big of a deal as a freshman, and he went in there and cooled it off. He put the ice. Eric Zier, that's a guy. You guys, see now, Walter, you know I'm an Eric Zier fan. You know I'm an Eric Zier fan. I love talking with Eric Zier. Like Eric Zier still puts me in awe. Like, you know, Todd Gurley, what a beast he was, right? When I talk with Eric Zier, I just, you know, John Elway did that to me. You know, I was a John Elway fan, like, when I was younger, right? But Eric Zier is kind of like my SEC legend. I love listening to Zier. He is just, if he says it, man, I'm taking it to the bank. I like the Godfrey pick. Nobody has picked my guy, though. I think this guy is number 2 to Herschel Walker. I really do, and nobody's picking him. And I don't understand it. I don't think I remember it. Here's how I remember it. Remember, right? I was covering other teams, so I know what other teams thought of this guy, and they couldn't handle this guy. This guy gave other teams bad dreams. Garrison, you know, these are all great names. Garrison Hurst. I remember Tim Worley was a dude that I thought was a tough running back. AJ Green was phenomenal. Remember AJ, Julio? We were trying to Hines Ward. Nobody's guessing my guy. This is so easy. Come on, Georgia fans. You know who this guy is, Champ Bailey. You know, that's my biggest clue. Everybody knows this guy. It's not AJ Green. He's on defense. It's not Gurley. He's on defense. He's an animal. Charlie Trippi. No. Thomas Davis. Now that may be a good argument. DJ Shockley. No, not DJ. He had a nice SEC title there. Robert Edwards was amazing. Unstoppable at times. Do I got to say it? Do I got to throw it out there? I got over 100 Georgia fans watching, and nobody's throwing my guy out there. Maybe you're gonna argue with me, but I don't think so. I look at I got the history books, right? Like, look what I got right here. Okay, I've been studying. Boss Bailey was a tough guy. Thank you, Heath. Heath Walker. Heath Walker got it. Bill Goldberg. Taylor, come on. Heath Walker got it. He got it. You know who it is. I love the guy. He's a bit obnoxious. He's fun. He's energetic. I think he reps Georgia well, and I think he speaks right from the heart. And that is one. He's the most decorated Georgia defensive player in history. That's your clue. He's the most decorated Georgia defensive player in history. It's David Pollock. Did I miss it, Heath? Sorry. David Pollock. David Pollock's my first pick if Herschel Walker's gone. Pollock was unstoppable. He gave Casey Clausen nightmares. Tennessee was supposed to take over the SEC when Spurrier left, but they didn't because Georgia got in the way because of the Davids, because of David Green and David Pollock. You turn on the film of Pollock, this guy was an animal. He was unbelievable, and he come in as a fullback. Sorry, Joel, I must have missed it. Some of you guys guessed it and missed it. David Pollock, to me, is the next guy after Herschel Walker, just because he's an animal, just because what he brings, the energy, the intensity, just the unblock. You know, the guy coming off the edge, you just cannot stop him. I don't think enough people, and people are telling me they've said, I missed it. My vision must be bad. I'm looking at the screen, and there were so many names popping up. Look at Mike Gay. You know what? Now, that's actually a pretty good guess, because if you get Kirby Smart as your next Bulldog, then you get all these recruits, right? So I like that. That's game in the system right there. Kirby Smart, 4-time academic All-SEC pick, Kirby Smart. Like that pick, Mike. That's really good. Clever stuff on a Sunday night. I hope everybody's having a good Sunday. You know, I hope you've had a good weekend. Okay, so just a minute of the coronavirus talk. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with it. I've been keeping up with it. Jeff Centel, Mike, we've got a couple guys that have wives that work in these next 2 weeks, folks. Hunker down, okay? Because this is going to get really serious in Georgia. It's going to get really serious across the country. The numbers are not going to be good. There's going to be some devastation. I pray that all of you are healthy and your families are healthy, that my family is healthy, that I'm healthy. I'm concerned. The next 2 weeks, please just hunker down, stay in. For me, example, like I started to go out the other day for something random like grass seed, right? Going, my backyard. I drove in the Lowe's parking lot and I was like, no, I just can't. I looked around and I just couldn't. I said, what am I thinking? What am I doing? I don't need the grass seed that bad. I don't need it that bad. So unless you have to be out, don't go out. Okay, that's my PSA. I wanted to tell you that from my heart. I appreciate all of you that watch. The Dog Nation family appreciates everyone out there. And this is kind of a time when we all got to take care of each other. So now look at Darius Brown saying he knew it wasn't Buck Bellew. Now, does everybody pick on Buck Bellew? It's not his fault that his job was to hand off to Herschel. In fact, I think that's a pretty cool gig. Like, I want to be I used to tease Pat Washington. Pat was an assistant when I covered Tennessee. Pat Washington was an Auburn quarterback that handed off to Bo Jackson. You had a pretty good gig there. Buck Bellew had a pretty good gig being Herschel Walker's quarterback. I mean, Jake Fromm will tell you he had it pretty good his freshman year, handing off to Nick and Sony and having Swift. Fromm will tell you that. I think Jake Fromm. I got a lot of respect for Jake Fromm. I think Jake Fromm's been through a lot, and I thought he handled himself with a lot of class. And I don't know that he gets all the credit that he deserves. He wasn't the all over the field playmaker, but he didn't really get Georgia beat. The only game you could really point to, you could say South Carolina, but if you watched it closely, a ball went off a receiver's hands, another receiver turned the wrong direction. There was like one legit pick in that game, and it was Jake's first of the year. So, hey, Jacob O'Neal, it's good to see you here, man. You're not late. You're right on time. Andy Hall brings it up, made the throws against the Gators. I mean, it was, 12 of 18? Well, now, Frank, let's not call anybody overrated, okay? Let's not do that. He was a national championship quarterback. He won the position at a time when Georgia had talent, but he didn't have to do a lot. I'm not going to penalize him for that. 80 championship game, rewatch it. All right, you guys are getting me now. Maybe I'm going to have to go back and watch. But I respect Bug Bellew. I kind of like him. He seems like a pretty good guy on radio, right? Jake never lost to Florida. In fact, Jake he closed his career with 12 straight wins over his rivals, right? So he lost the first game he played against Auburn, but then he beat Auburn 3 straight. He beat Tennessee 3 straight. He beat Georgia Tech 3 straight. And he beat Florida 3 straight. Jake finished his career with a 12-game winning streak against Georgia's 4 major rivals. That's not bad for Jake Fromm. I think Jake is always going to be remembered as a really special guy. Everybody liked Jake Fromm. I don't think anybody, personally, I don't think there was any reason to dislike him. Kirby Smart respected him and trusted him to call the plays at the line. When are we going to see another quarterback like that? Is it going to be Vandergriff? Is it going to be Beck? Is it going to be Mathis? How much power will Newman have this year? I don't think everybody wanted Jake gone. And if they did, then that's too bad. I can understand why Georgia is able to evolve and move on without Jake. But I wouldn't go so far as to say people wanted him gone. I think that's a bit much. But I do think people want to see a mobile quarterback at Georgia. They want to see this lights-out offense like Alabama and LSU have. Let me tell you, you're not going to see it. Not next season. And here's why. Because you've got the best defense in the country. And Kirby Smart is going to play percentage football. He's not there to run up numbers. He's not there to impress anybody. He's going to play percentage football. They're going to be able to run the ball effectively. They're going to be balanced. These things sound boring, but this is what the New England Patriots did for how many years, right? So, your clue was this. I don't know if you saw it. Was it last offseason when Kirby was asked about his favorite games and he didn't mention the Rose Bowl? And everybody's like, how could you not mention? Because that's not a Kirby Smart type of game. Like, the fans loved it. Oh, the scoring and this and that. That is not a Kirby Smart type of game. The Sugar Bowl this year against Baylor was a Kirby Smart kind of game where they just strangle the other team. And they get up by 3 touchdowns. And they just strangle you. And they got you. And he's going to run it. And he's going to bleed clock. and he's going to count on his defense, and he's going to make you do things you don't want to do. That's a Kirby Smart kind of game, not this wild shootout against Oklahoma. That is Kirby. That is not what Kirby's signed up for. That is not the kind of football that Georgia's going to play under Kirby. I just don't see it happening. So think about that. And I like it because I've covered coaches like Kirby Smart. Like I think Gene Stallings and Mark D'Antonio, very similar to Kirby Smart. And do you know what they had in common? They were also defensive backs in college. And in D'Antonio's case, he also coached secondary for Saban. Only D'Antonio had a little sprinkling of trestle ball when Ohio State beat Miami. You don't believe Jake won the job? No. See, you got to understand something. The way this works with coaches, if a player doesn't win the job and still gets the job, it creates a huge rift in the locker room. It creates a huge amount of distrust, and other players see that, and they're not going to sign up for that. They're not going to be bought in. If Jake didn't truly win the job, the Georgia players wouldn't be bought into Kirby Smart. So you have to understand that. Jake won the job, fair and square, but everybody recognized Justin's talents. But they were at practice every day. If Jake didn't deserve to be the guy, that team would have turned on Kirby Smart. Okay, but they didn't. The buy-in was there. It tells you everything. Now, I have, and I'm not going to mention the program and when and where, but I did see a situation where a quarterback was given the job who didn't win it. And that team had a losing record that year, and they hadn't had a losing record before that for a super long time. So I've seen that when it happens. I've seen what it does to a team. That didn't happen to Georgia. So I know people look at it, but you got to remember, like, the quarterback position it's not like the superstars competition. It's not who can run through the obstacle course or throw the ball through the ring or throw the ball the farthest or run the fastest 40 time. It's who can lead the team. And Kirby stressed that going into camp that particular year. Who's going to get the team in the end zone? That's what it comes down to. And let me tell you, that's what it's going to come down to with Jamie Newman, Dwan Mathis, and Carson Beck. Who can lead the team? That's what was missing this spring. So when I started this chat, I told you that I had a concern that Newman hadn't won the job outright, and I thought he needed to fill that leadership void. So this competition is going to continue, okay, between Dwan and Carson Beck and Jamie Newman. And somebody's going to have to win the job outright because Kirby doesn't give stuff away. Now, there was one silver lining. There's one silver lining to this spring football cancellation. Ready for it? You're not going to have as many players transfer because jobs haven't been decided. I believe Georgia was going to lose a handful of players. I really do. Not because they don't love Georgia, not because they're bad guys, but players want opportunities. And one of the side effects, one of the unintended consequences of stacking talent like Georgia has done is you wake up one day and you're the third team guy or the second team guy. Otis Reese is a great example of this, right? He's a great football player. It's a guy Kirby liked. It's a guy that loved Georgia, but he saw Lewis Seen was the guy and he said, maybe Tyreek Stevenson. I don't know but he's out. He's going to Ole Miss. He wants to start, right? So silver lining to this. Frank with another one, no injuries. Great point. Great point, Frank. More rehab. So there's some good that comes out of it. I'm going to have more stories for you this week about Georgia and how they're handling the potential. I don't even want to say the potential for no football, so I'm not going to say that. But where they're at, how they're managing it. I had a story today I kind of jumped on, and I give WSB credit. They do the game day show, and they put out tweets, and you'll see passages. And I kind of laughed because Kirby said, Kirby now he's got this camera technology, it's dawned on him that it can be even more places. Like he physically doesn't have to be there. So now he's like, and I'm paraphrasing what he said. I can be watching film in my office and listening in via Zoom to this offensive meeting. So it's like, it's like you can just see Kirby, like he's got all this stuff going, right? Like he's watching film, he's listening in on the Zoom meeting, right, of an offensive meeting, and you can just see him wait a second, like pausing. What What'd you just say, Munkin? What did you is Luke going, well, he said it. What did he say? Coach, we got this, right? So now Kirby is going to be even more everywhere. So I kind of got a kick out of that. You saw Connor Riley had a story earlier in the week, and I mentioned it again, what Kirby said on Feinbaum about, maybe we've been doing this wrong, flying all the way to USC or Miami when we can just get on a Zoom teleconference. I mean, that's simplifying a little bit. Kirby's still going to go and have FaceTime with people, I think. But a lot's going to come out of this, because I think a couple of things that make Kirby a great football coach. One is that he's a former player and a safety who understood the game. Two, he's obviously an intelligent guy, even beyond football. He's got a CEO mentality, and he works extremely well. Him and McGarity work incredibly well together. They fit, right? Greg really works with Kirby, makes what Kirby, it really sees through Kirby's visions. But Kirby, he was Saban's first lieutenant there at Alabama. I think he learned a lot from Nick. He was around a lot of other great coaches on that staff. He coached under Bobby Bowden for a year. I love it that he coached under Bowden. He coached under Mark Richt for a year. So Kirby has seen it a lot of different places, and he's still only 44 years old. So the exposure to all the greatness, being a player himself at the SEC at the highest level, the IQ, his ability to process things quickly, his ability to spot talent, evaluate, all that. But on the icing on the cake is Kirby's efficiency. Kirby is extremely efficient with his time. He's not somebody that loses track of time. Again, D'Antonio was the same way. I think the technology that's being introduced right now, as these teams try to get through this difficult period, Kirby's going to maximize it. He's going to absolutely maximize it. He's going to make the most of it, and it's going to make Georgia more efficient and more streamlined and even better moving forward. So there's going to be a lot that comes out of this of good. Right now we're all kind of going through the bad. Again, if you missed me earlier, it's going to get rough the next 2 weeks. Please stay inside. Please stay inside. Please social distance. These next few weeks are absolutely pivotal, critical. I mean, we're talking about a historic time. We're talking about something that 100 years from now people are going to refer back to. Make sure you're making decisions right now that a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that you look back on and say, I'm glad I did this, okay? I'm going to leave you with that. I've talked long enough. We've had some fun tonight. I appreciate your feedback. I'm sorry that all of you that guessed David Pollock and I missed it. That doesn't mean that's the right answer, by the way. That's just my answer. You all have been following Georgia deeper, and you have a perspective on these all-time greats. I'm looking at it from like covering the other teams when I covered Alabama and Auburn and Tennessee and Michigan State, and what did I see? Georgia was always in my grill against all those teams. They played all of them, and I always respected Georgia. It wasn't like Georgia was like ever a favorite, but it was like some of those trips you get on the airplane or you drive home and you go, man, I just hate that place. You leave Georgia and you leave with a smile, right? It's cool. You're like, man, that's a cool stadium. Daggone, that Claude Felton's a nice guy. Wow, Vince Dooley or Mark Richt. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just there's no reason not to like Georgia. Everybody likes Georgia. Classy. First class program. Really glad that I'm covering it now. Everybody, thanks for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed Dog Nation this week. We got a lot more stories coming out. I promise you we'll keep the content rolling. Everybody, please be safe this week. Have a great Sunday night.